everyone's doing all right tonight. Today is not, as you can see, it's not Final Fantasy VII, but it is Romance Christmas. It is a visual novel game I started a week ago or so, and I'm one of those people that like to complete games. I don't like to leave games unfinished if I can help it. Plus, I'm curious to see what happened. I know last time someone got murdered, so now I guess we gotta figure out who it is. And let me know how the sound is. Hopefully the sound's okay. I don't know if you'll notice, I got a new toy. I just got it this morning, actually. And luckily, it didn't take me too long to set up, so that was nice. What is it? It's an AT2020 USB microphone. Because I'm not smart enough or rich enough to get an XLR mic just yet. But without further ado... Oh, and I also have a new camera as well. It's probably hard to notice, but this camera's a little wider than the one I had before. It's a little wider lens, and I believe it goes at a higher FPS than my old camera did. Alright, so let's go ahead and continue. Here, I believe. Oh yeah, we were talking with you. Okay. What are your whereabouts? I just want to ask what you were doing with when Kane's incident happened. I was standing in front of you. I see. Care to explain about this list? No comment. I realized that would make me suspicious, but firstly, I was standing in front of you when the incident happened. Secondly, do I seem foolish enough to write down a hit list and not bother to hide it? Fair enough. Let's talk to you. What do you have to say? No offense, I just want to ask what you were doing when Kane's incident happened. Quite alright, my good fellow. It's your job. I was playing cards downstairs with the others and didn't notice anything until Kane was found. Thanks for your cooperation. A dreadful business this is, but I can't help but expect that someone like you would have things well in paw, Detective. Good to see someone's confident. Okay, let's see. This is Vincel's big suitcase. Seems like it hasn't been opened since its owner entered the tavern. Hasn't been used yet. It looks very soft. The bed is tidy. May I have a look inside the drawer? Of course, my good fellow. Vincel pulled open the empty drawer. Well, thanks for your cooperation. Is that it? Yeah. That was it. Nothing here, I guess. The snow is still falling. Nope, I guess not. Not what I meant to click. Alright, let's look for someone else. Okay, let's see. Well, before we look at the body, I guess let's look here. What were your whereabouts? I just want to ask what you were doing when Kane's incident happened. I was upstairs in my master and mistress's room. They rang the bell to call me upstairs, so I was going to enter their room to ask for instructions. I heard a loud sound before I entered. But my duty to the Marquis is more important than satisfying my curiosity, so I ignored the sound. After completing my tasks, I went to see what happened. I think the Marquis and Marquise are willing to prove my innocence. Well, thanks for your testimony. Why do you have so much luggage? They belong to my master and mistress. I keep them here so that their room is less crowded. Chest added to clue. I'm a little curious why you chose to crush the door like that. Because I'm a ram, I'm used to butting something when faced with a barrier. And after all what happened just now, maybe he still could have been saved. Just after coming from the room and seeing what was going on, I decided to take the most direct route. Guess that's it. This is Lunac and Solar's suitcase. It looks expensive and well made. I can't look inside though unless I get their permission. There's a mark on the chest. Maybe it's the travel. Maybe not. Sean was likely to make the bed again in his own way. The same. I can't look inside though unless I get their permission. Alright. Oh, it's the hyena. What do you have to say? Or your whereabouts? I just want to ask what you were doing when Kane's incident happened. I was watching the others playing cards. Everyone can testify this. I see. That's it? Okay. I'm gonna search your room anyway. The bedsheet is tidy. Seems like Heron hasn't slept so far. Heron didn't obstruct me as I checked the night table, so I did away with the formalities. Heron's Bible was in a drawer. There's also a rosary on the table. Well, I guess that's pretty standard. The snow is still falling. Alright, so... I just talked with him, so I guess I don't know if I can go in here yet. Are you free now? What's the matter? Just some routine questions. You just need to answer honestly. Where were you when the incident occurred, and what were you doing? Reading my book downstairs at the bar. Who else was downstairs at the same time? Tarzan, Heron, Giannis, Peter, Vincel, and Anzox. Anzox, Heron, and I kept ourselves occupied while the others played cards. How's the autopsy coming along? I'm not quite finished yet. Please wait a bit more. Right. I'll check someplace else. Maybe I'll go ask Tarzan about the key holder. Okay. What do you have to say? I just want to ask what you were doing when Kane's incident happened. What? I need to answer too? Standard procedure, everyone does. Fine, I was playing cards at that time. Then I heard a loud sound and a ringing bell. I thought perhaps someone fell down or collapsed, so I rushed upstairs. Turns out that it wasn't what I expected. Tarzan leaned in on the stove like a deflated balloon. What should I do? Don't worry, I'll try my best to help you. Tarzan sighed and straightened the keychain around his waist. Do you mind to answering something about this tavern? Anything. If it can help you catch the murderer quickly. I want to know how many sets of keys you have for the place and where they're located. 2. One set is for guests. If the room is empty, I hang it by my bedside in the attic. The other set is carried with you? Exactly, only 2, and I've checked my set. None are missing. So the one in the door of Kane's room, it only can be Kane's. Are you sure? Maybe it's a fake. Impossible. I went upstairs to look for myself. The moment I touched the key, I knew it must be Kane's. I know the weight and shape of each K I own. It's not a fake. but it's impossible to leave after locking the door. By the way, I don't know whether it can help you not, but there is one other thing. Every lock and key set was custom made for the tavern. If you tried opening any of the other doors with your own key, you'd find it won't go in. Why? These keys look very similar, but the angles and shapes of the teeth have tiny, almost unnoticeable differences. So it'll stick in the wrong lock. I don't know if it's negligence or brilliance on the part of the locksmith. Well, I found a notebook in Elegant's room with everyone's names in it. She's looking for someone. Makes sense. Your name, Giannis's, Anzox's, and Kane's have crosses through them. Perhaps it just means she's investigated them already. She's crossed out 4 of 13 people, and one of the former is attacked accidentally. Anyway, that's a very definite possibility. Alright. So that's it. A bucket of clean water for cooking. The water in the pot is boiling. Guess Sarzan forgot to add meat because of this incident. A wide variety of knives for bread, meat, vegetables, and everything else. A kitchen knife is stuck on the chopping board. And there's fire. The stove fire is crackling. Okay. I guess that's it for you. Peter, let's talk for a minute. I don't know, Kane. I know everyone is sad right now, but we need to find the killer. No, not me. I didn't kill him. We didn't say that, dude. Calm down. I just want to ask you a few questions. Really? Really, you just need to tell me what you were doing at that time. I gently patted his back until he calmed down. I was downstairs playing cards with Sarzan and others. After he went upstairs, we restarted a round. And this time, we changed to a new game. I was having good luck with my cards, and I drew a good hand. When it was Heron's turn to play... Heron? He took your place after you left. I thought he wouldn't join. What happened at the time of the incident? Well, I heard some kind of sound, like things were getting smashed. After a bit, the sound stopped. I guess that either Kane was losing his temper, or you were looking for something, so I didn't pay it much mind. During the second round, I heard a very loud noise suddenly. Then there was also a weird bell ringing noise that I couldn't identify. Sarzan put his cards on the chair immediately and rushed upstairs. Then we followed him. At first I thought maybe it was a trifle, like someone tripped and fell, but then you know the rest. Okay, thanks for your testimony. Giannis, I'd like to talk with you. Peter's ears erected suddenly. In private. Fairly sensible. I want to know what you were doing at the time when Kane was killed. Hold on, you don't think I'm the one who... Don't worry, I'm asking everyone the same questions. I was playing cards at the table. Nothing else special. I didn't realize something was happening until everyone started running upstairs as soon as I looked up from my cards. I never thought Kane would. Thanks for your testimony. Did you notice Kane acting strangely this evening? I don't think so. He was drinking, playing cards, complaining about jobs, you know, the usual. Drunk off his ass and muttering that he wanted to be a chief for nobility, but didn't have a chance. Is that all? Me and him would meet and get drunk a lot, and I know he found a new job a few days ago. He couldn't have committed suicide. I know in my guts he didn't. Giannis put his hand on my shoulder gently. Please, Roman, find the bastard who did this quickly. Well, I found a notebook in Elegant's room with everyone's names in it. Kane's name was crossed out or something, wasn't it? Exactly, yours, Sarzan's, and Anzox's too. A hit list, but why? How do you know about that? I don't know. Guess that's it. just want to ask what you were doing when Kane's incident happened. Me? I was watching them playing cards. Right. Who was the culprit? Anzox was lost in thought. Well, I found a notebook in Elegant's room with everyone's names in it. Your name and Giannis Tarzan's and Kane's are crossed out. Aha, she must be the murderer! What are some of the favorite visual novels I have played? Trying to think. I haven't played a ton. I've played... I don't know, I liked, this is a scary one, but I liked, Doki Doki Literature Club, despite how crazy that one is. And I don't know, Franbo, well, Franbo wasn't really a visual novel, kind of, sort of. I liked that one. And I think the only other one I've played is one that's called Cinderella Phenomenon, but that one's not really well known. That one was a free one I found on Steam. This is probably the third one I've played? Fourth one I've played? But I guess out of all the ones I've played, Doki Doki is probably the top. Even though that one is insane. That's a bit early to call. That must be her hit list. Clearly she's an evil assassin, or worse. If she is, she's the worst assassin in history. Nobody would just plan out a murder like that. I was thinking if someone used the spare key. No way. Why are you so sure? The keys are all in the key holder, and they look exactly the same. I would imagine only Tarzan can discern the differences between them. Even if the murderer had all the time in the world, he wouldn't know which key to take. Ask Tarzan if you don't believe me. It kind of messes with your mind a little bit. That's Thrivey's book. The cover has the image of a dragon and some symbols that I can't quite figure out. That's Thrivey's medical supply box. It's so heavy, even Tarzan had difficulty lugging it around. Thrivey's bed. It's one of the beds that Tarzan usually sleeps in, but he's loaned it to Thrivey to sleep on for now. Candle. Candle, neither worse nor the best. That's Anzox's bed. He sleeps there every time he comes here. That's Thrivey's book. The cover has the image of a dragon, some symbols that I can't quite figure out. Okay. Light streams into the attic through the round skylight. The accumulated snow could slide down along the roof, but instead is heaped on the window. These must be the keys which Tarzan hangs by the bedside. If there's an empty room available, the free keys will hang on there. The door was locked. Were there any problems with the key? I counted them one by one. The shapes are basically the same. Seems like that they were made in the same workshop. I'll ask Tarzan about it later. I think we already talked to him, though. I actually bought a visual novel recently on my Switch that I've been playing a little bit. But it's a goofy one. It's called Kitty Love. It's originally in Japanese and has a translation that's not the best. It's hilarious, honestly. It's just like your simple like dating sim sort of like love visual novel. Maybe I'll stream it sometime, I'm not sure. Alright. Giannis's rooms. Okay, what is this one then? This is Lunik and Solar's room. Oh, I haven't searched that yet. Oops. Guess we'll go here. I just want to ask what you were doing when Kane's incident happened. Forgive me for following protocol. Solar and I were in this room together. Sean was in my room when the incident happened. I rang the bell to call him in. The bell is on the table. I'll check it later. This is enough to eliminate us as suspects? Thank you very much. I think we're done here, so I won't disturb you further. You're welcome, Detective. Please visit me if you need any help. This is a handbell. Must be used for calling Sean. I've seen the Marquis ring the bell in his house. The sound wasn't loud, but Sean always seemed to hear it. Having a butler must be nice. I could see the front of the tavern through this window. This is a double bed, the only double bed in this tavern. Of course, guests wouldn't choose this room usually. As soon as I moved towards the bedside table, Lunik interrupted me. Anything I can help you with, Monsieur Roman? The tone suggested the opposite. May I check the drawer? No, I think the items inside have nothing to do with this case. He showed me a gentle smile. And as a Marquis, I have the right to refuse any kind of search which I think is excessive. Suspicious. Very suspicious. Okay. Am I done yet? It's been ready. It's been ready. Go to search. Yes, I will go to search right now. Kane's eyes are devoid of any life or energy. His face was frozen in a look of shock at the moment he died. He's been dead for about 30 minutes. This was a dagger which had exquisite decorative patterns carved into its hilt. It was found stabbed deep into Kane's chest. This dagger looks expensive. I checked the edge of the dagger. It's really sharp. The wound appears to be diamond-shaped, filled with coagulated blood. The apron and other clothes were bloody as well. The dagger's blade profile is identical to the shape of the wound. Kane's pendant was hanging on his neck with an intact lanyard. His wallet was also in his pocket. Well, I finished my autopsy. If there's anything you don't understand, do let me know. Thank you. At the beginning, his hand was resting on the hilt of the dagger, but it fell down. Resting on the hilt. Well, there's blood, obviously. The blood was spreading on the floor. I guess that's... Sean knocked the door open, but fortunately the lock wasn't damaged. Nothing suspicious about the outer keyhole. The key was inserted in the keyhole. I turned the key to pull it out smoothly, but I felt something strange when I inserted the key back into the lock. A little bit sticky. Alright. It looks like someone knocked these drinking cups on the ground. One of the two candlesticks was on the ground, too. Let's see. Anything? A single bed. There are a few bloodstains on the sheets. There's more than a few. The window was closed. The window bolt was also locked. I gave it a push. It wouldn't budge an inch. I guess that's it. I've searched everywhere else. Let's focus on the crime scene for now. I can sniff now? I took a deep breath, trying to sniff out the murderer. Although it doesn't work all the time, it saves me a lot of trouble. The scent of blood is too strong. I can't connect the scents with anyone. Might as well pay more attention to the scents. I closed my eyes and breathed in and out through my nose. Whoa. I suppose different races and different things smell different. When they interact with each other, they'll leave their unique scent on each other. Time to sniff! I know, right? Wish humans could do that. But maybe we might be overwhelmed with too much smell. If I close my eyes and sniff carefully, I can locate the position of every odor, then restore them to the scene. The more similar interact methods, places, and time... The more similar interact methods, places, and times are, the more similar the scent is. What the... First day of English. More similar interact methods, places, and times are... More similar... I don't know what the hell that even means. Okay. Lost in translation, yeah. Yeah. I tried, man, and I'm like, it's like solving a riddle. Alright. Do I click things? The odor of blood and death was coming from Kane. The chair he sat in was stained with similar smells. The glass smells strongly of alcohol. Blood won't give me nothing? Okay. The alcohol in the candlestick smells like cups. The smell from the dagger smells of blood, iron, and cane. Okay. The key had a metallic smell, but something doesn't feel right. Wait, it doesn't smell like the murder scene. What? I've searched everywhere else. Let's focus on the crime scene for now. Well, what more do I need to say? Reading my book downstairs at the bar. I'd like to know more about the condition of the body. Very well. The victim is Kane, a male oxen, nearly 30 years old. He was found in his own room 30 minutes ago. The time of death was close to the time of discovery. He was found in a sitting position in the chair of the room where he died. The left hand hung down naturally. The right hand rested on the hilt of the dagger and fell away when the body was found. The victim was wearing a beige leather apron and a white linen top, which was punctured by the dagger. Blood from the wounds saturated the clothes. The victim was also wearing a pendant. There is an open wound on the left portion of his chest. The shape of the wound is identical to that of the dagger. The depth is about a hand's span long. It's probably the killing blow. I didn't find any bruises or other types of wounds. That's all I know at present. mean, I've already done this. Oh, yeah, whatever. The smell from the lock is a mixed odor of metal and hand sweat with a faint blood smell. Two things smells fishy. The key in the lock, I guess. If the key was stuck in the lock after the incident, then it should smell the same as the lock. But why can't I smell it? That should do. The evidence I have is enough. It's time to find out the truth. Okay, then. Sure. Sure. I don't care. And now I have saved. After a thorough search, I asked everyone to come to the hall for trial. I gathered everyone here. Is it time for the infamous parlor scene? I can only hope the murder is so easy to point out. The problem is I only have the clues available, so I'll need your help solving this case. But the criminal is one of us. Surely they'll try to distract or mislead you. That's exactly what I want. The more the murderer tries to whitewash the events, the simpler my job becomes. Let's start with the simplest problem first. Is this case a suicide or a homicide? Now it's trial time. I guess. I know some people are calling this like a Danganronpa ripoff. Because that's something you do in Danganronpa is like trials and stuff like that. The first mystery is the dagger in Kane's chest. Giannis, is this Kane's dagger? I've never seen him with a dagger like that. He usually borrows my knife to cut carrots. If this knife doesn't belong to Kane, I have to ask a question which no one's going to answer. Whose dagger is this? Or the better question being, who just happened to lose a fancy dagger recently? Everyone's like, Nobody answered, of course. I looked around. Everyone was avoiding my eyes, trying not to look directly at me. The only advantage to being a detective is that everyone will think you have the ability to spot lies at a glance. But if they don't talk, you can't just make them speak. Well, at least we can be sure that this dagger isn't Kane's. Next, our second mystery, the lock. I pushed the handle forcefully at that time and didn't move. The door couldn't be opened. Could the lock be jammed? Why would it? I check whether the handle and the locks work when I do my daily inspection. So the door was really locked when the incident happened. Right, only Sean crashed the door until Sean crashed the door. Fortunately, the lock's still in good condition. I'll fix everything after all this is over. Did Kane really lock the door and commit suicide? I can't believe it. But the dagger is hard to explain. Maybe he kept the dagger hidden and didn't let anybody know he had it. That's not true. There's another problem with the lock. From which side? Oh, that one didn't fit in the box. From which side the door is locked? Is the doorknob working? I guess from which side? Right. Sarzan, I'd like to confirm one thing. So many nervous peeps. Yep. No kidding. I'd like to confirm one thing. Spit it out. The door could be locked from both sides, correct? Sure. Naturally, we'd assume the most obvious possibility, but Kane's door was not locked from the inside. It was locked from the outside. Wait a moment, there's something strange. Hold it. What? After opening the door, Sean and I were standing by the door. Sean suggested that we should have a look at the scene so as to give better testimonies. So we checked the lock one by one, and the key was in the lock inside the room. That's right, I saw that too, but it's been a while since the door opened. During the chaos, anything could happen, such as the murderer moving the key from outside to inside. But I was beside the bed the moment it opened. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Thought you already knew that. Ask me next time. Fine. Seems the door is locked from the inside, but something smells fishy. I don't get it. What's strange about the lock? What? Kane's key was inside his room. Kane's door was shut. The keyhole was... So weird. Why is there something like glue in the lock? Maybe it's the stew from lunch. Clearly it was sabotaged somehow. Though we didn't know the method. We can assume the door was locked from the inside for now. But we can't exclude the idea that the culprit locked the door from the inside, then escaped the room by some method. Besides, Kane didn't have any reason to kill himself. He told me he'd found a new job this afternoon. He even said to me that he'll be managing his own restaurant after he saved up enough money. So he didn't have the state of mind to consider suicide. And you don't just commit suicide on Christmas. That's maybe a stretch. Thusly, the possibility of a suicide is infinitesimal. We cannot deny the possibility of homicide now. Isn't it better to say that it's actually a homicide? Now we begin to narrow the circle of suspects. At first, we can exclude all the people downstairs. So, who was in the hall at the time? Oh boy. I thought there was someone that said it. If I remembered, there are Sarzan, Heron, Anzox, Giannis, Thrivey, Peter, and Vincel. And Sean, Marquis Lunik, Marquis Solar, Roman, and myself were upstairs. Pardon-moi, but Solar, Sean, and I were in my room. Shouldn't we be excluded? The problem is that Elegant and I were in her room face to face. According to you, nobody's suspicious at all. I'm sorry for my impropriety, Marquis Harlock. C'est bon. I can feel your enthusiasm for investigation. Why is he French? For the time being, we'll just regard everyone upstairs as suspects. These are Elegant, the Marquis couple, Sean, and me. I would like each of you to go over what you were doing when the incident happened in as much detail as you can. I want to hear Sean's testimony first. Where should I begin? When you first went upstairs. Because the Marquis called for me, I went upstairs. Generally speaking, it was about time for the Marquis's medicine to help him sleep. I heard loud noises as I was passing through, so after I prepared the medicine, I went out to see what was going on. And then I found you all crowding around the locked door, so I knocked it open. Knocked it open. Something smells fishy. Maybe I'll press harder for further information. Ask what? How you summoned Sean. How you summoned Sean. Sleeping aids. The voice outside. Locked door. How did you know the door was locked? Because you were dragging and pulling the handle. I assumed that it might be locked. Okay. What noise? Just like the sound of heavy objects crashing to the ground. What kind of medicine? 1 drop of lavender and citrus oil, added to water or wine. It was prescribed by the Marquis's personal physician. Sounds like a pretty mild medicine. Because it's just a slight nervous tension, it's not supposed to be potent. How you summon Sean. Speaking specifically, how did they call you up? I went upstairs when I heard the bell ring. That is how they always summon me. Please add the things you've mentioned to your testimony. Okay. Please testify again. I heard the sound of the Marquis ringing the bell, then went upstairs. Generally speaking, I prepare the Marquis' sleeping medicine. It's a mix of lavender and citrus oils in wine or water. The Marquis' doctor told me to add 2 drops of oils into water or wine and gave the Marquis to drink. I heard something like heavy object crashing into the ground, so I went out and had a look. And then I found Joel crowding around the locked door, so I crashed it. Wait, I think there's something strange in your testimony. What evidence is contradictory with Sean's testimony? Oh boy. It was that one, okay. You said that you went upstairs before hearing the ring, then heard the loud noise? Yes, is there any problem? Please recall Peter's testimony. Peter mentioned he heard several small noises, a loud noise, and then the ring. Whose memory is wrong, yours or Peter's? Or one of you is lying. In fact, I didn't hear the ring. Around this time, I usually start making the medicine. Really? It's just mixing 2 drops of stuff together. Anyway, I went upstairs before hearing the bell, and I was fixing the medicine in my room. After hearing the loud noise, I went out and heard the bell ring. So I went to the Marquis' room to put down the medicine, then went out again. That actually makes sense. When was the prescription given? About 2 years ago. My master takes it all the time. May I ask what were you doing when the incident happened, Marquis? Oui, it is my duty to cooperate with your investigation after such a terrible incident. We were in my room the entire time, pajamas on, sitting in bed. We were preparing to retire for the evening, so I rang the bell to call Sean. I heard something strange, but I couldn't identify it through the door. Then Sean ran out hurriedly after he put the medicine down. I realized something had happened. Usually he waits silently until I finish the medicine, then left after cleaning the mug and blowing the candle out. Something smells fishy. Maybe I'll press harder for more information. Can you remember if the sounds occurred before or after you rang the bell? I can't remember clearly. What about you, mon chéri? Technically it should be ma chérie, but whatever. It seems like... Ah, forgive me. Stress plays such havoc with my memory, I don't recall. I don't distrust you. I just want to cover all the bases. How long did it take for Sean to arrive after ringing the bell? After I rang the bell? Within 30 seconds. Is that right, mon petit rayon de soleil? My little ray of sunshine? Yes, prompt and reliable as usual. Changing in pajamas, I don't mean to offend, but changing clothes is really a suspicious behavior. Why? We were preparing for bed. We also changed back to our earlier clothing. And as you can see, we are quite immaculate. Sure, I may have overthought. Could you please tell me about what you heard in detail? I'm not sure. It sounded much too muffled. Please add what you've mentioned to the testimony. As you wish, Monsieur Detective. We were in our room the entire time, having changed the pajamas and preparing for bed. Our formal dress is clean, without any blood. When it was the time I needed to sleep, I rang the bell to call Sean. He came within 30 seconds. I heard a muffled sound, but cannot remember if it was before I rang the bell or after. When Sean ran out hurriedly after he put the medicine down, I realized something had happened. Usually he waits silently until I drink, then leaves after cleaning the cup and blowing the candles out. Let me think, something isn't right. Oh boy. Also, I'm curious why you refuse to let me check your night table. That has nothing to do with this case, and it's my right. I hope you can understand. Nothing doubtful, I think. It may be safe to assume we've exhausted this line of questioning. I think so too. Thank you for your cooperation. So who are you asking next, Monsieur Detective? The next one is Elegant. What are you doing at that time? Me, I was standing in front of you. You came in, I shut the door, and I inquired if you were wearing a bell. That should be the Marquis' bell ring, I think. Then there was a crashing sound and a loud noise, after which you opened the door forcibly and ran out. I followed you and saw you trying to open the door to Kane's room. You have no proof you were in your room the entire time I was downstairs. Correct. Well, that was direct. You are welcome to doubt my testimony if you wish, as I cannot actually prove that. Can you sure you heard the bell ringing? I don't remember hearing it myself. Maybe you were distracted by the sound of the door closing. But my hearing is also much better than you. I don't know, I thought dogs had better hearing than cats. I don't know. The order of the noises. So the sequence of sounds, can you go over them? As you wish. First was ringing bell, then our conversation, then the sound of the crashing, followed by the loud sounds. This is getting weird. No kidding. About the notebook with our names. As suspicious as this will make me sound, I cannot disclose its purpose at this time. I cannot prove my behavior before you went upstairs, but I was standing in front of you at that time. The ringing should have occurred when I shut the door, so you missed it. Then in sequence, there was the ringing, then the smashing sound, after which you opened the door forcibly and ran out. I followed you and saw you trying to open the door to Kane's room. I know the book of names makes me suspicious, but I cannot tell you its purpose now. Gad. Peter, Sean, and you all heard the ring and small noises, but everyone's testimonies about the order of sounds are different. Peter heard the small noises first, then the bump, then the ring. You heard the ring first, then the small noises, then the loud one. And Sean only heard a loud noise and a ring. Who is lying? I don't know. I guess it's nobody. I see. Nobody lied. Oh, Elegant is shocked. Then it's a suicide, isn't it? Nobody lied, but nobody could describe the whole thing. What if there was more than one ringing? Oh, I didn't hear anything, stupid ears. For example, the first is ringing, then the crashing, followed by a loud sound. And then the ringing again. In this way, the sequence that 3 people heard should be correct. The number of bell rings is the key to solving the case? Yes. But why would the Marquis need to ring the bell again? Unless his faithful servant didn't answer when the first bell ring came out? Well, I didn't want to say that, because it would make the Marquis suspicious. But you have thought this stage, I have to explain. In fact, I heard 2 ringings. The first time, I entered to prepare the medicine. The second time, I didn't understand it, but still came in. Before I had the chance to ask the reason, I heard the loud sound from outside. By the way, when I first answered the bell, I only saw the Marquis standing on the bed without Marquis Harlock's presence. Something smells fishy. Maybe I'll press harder for further information. So you heard 2 ringings, and came in the room twice. Could you please tell me the exact situation when you entered the second time? I opened the door and saw Master Lunik and Mistress Solar seated together. He was breathing heavily, and he was sweating a great deal. Okay. Saw the Marquis. You didn't see the Marquis the first time? No, only the Marquis. Are you sure he wasn't just hiding in the corner or someplace you didn't notice? I'm sure. Please add what you mentioned to the testimony. In fact, I heard 2 ringings and answered twice. I prepared the medicine the first time, but the Marquis wasn't in the room. The second time, I found the Marquis in the room, breathing heavily and sweating profusely. Before I had a chance to ask the reason, I heard the loud sound from outside. Hold on. Sean! Please calm down. Don't hurt the witness. As I stepped between Sean and Lunik, Sean seized the opportunity to retreat. Monsieur Detective, I order you to step aside. This is a personal matter. But which book should you quote to stop Lunik? What? Huh? Elios. Excuse me. Yeah, let's go with that one. Pardon me. The Helios Code stipulates servants may not profess opinions that slander or demean their master's position. Do you understand my anger? Except when providing testimony to a felony crime such as a murder. Bâtard, Begemont, Bellier. After he's finished, tell him that he's fired immediately, and that I will see to it that he never works for another noble again. If you're the murderer, you should probably consider firing all your servants. You're going to need the money sooner than you think. If you think he's lying, you can choose to tell the truth. Very well, she do usually ask. I'm listening. Indeed, I rang the bell twice. I did not say so earlier because I did want my servant to become a suspect. I consider it recompense for 10 years of loyal service. But now that he has betrayed me, I will expose his lies, sans pitié. He didn't come at all when I rang the bell the first time. He came in after I rang the bell the second time, after some time. Something smells fishy. Maybe I'll press harder for further information. Why did you lie the first time? As I said, I did not wish my servant to become a suspect. He's arrested, who will serve me? But oui, I knew I was wrong. Please continue asking. Why do you think Sean betrayed you? His testimony doesn't have any truth and slanders my good name. Do you have any method to expose his lies? Are not my words enough? As if I'd accept that. Sean didn't come in when you first rang? Oui, why else would I need to ring again if he came? Maybe you're influenced by my speculation. No. Is your latest testimony true? Absolutely true. Without any exaggeration because of personal emotion? I swear it's upon my title. Indeed, I rang the bell twice. I did not say so earlier because I did not want my servant to become a suspect. Now I know I was wrong, but I didn't think about too much at that time. I considered recompense for 10 years of loyal service. His testimony is absolutely a lie. I swear it upon my title. When I first rang the bell, he didn't come, so I rang again. He came in after I rang the bell the second time after a while. Eh? I have no idea. Both of their testimonies are pretty weak. Even if I asked Solar to testify as Lunic's wife, her testimony would be suspect at best. If testimony is all that we can rely on, then we will never find the solution. Perhaps we should see if there is anything at the scene that can contradict them. Well, we haven't discussed the problem with the lock yet either. Now that the suspects are narrowed down again, I think I found a common point. Do you remember the moment the Marquise first arrived at the tavern? Ah, I nearly forgot. The melted snow had damaged the heel of my shoe. I guess we thought of something. Ah, what do you think? There's the lock. Which part of the lock? What part of the lock is suspicious? What does that have to do with anything? Oh, okay. Let's look. The hole was sticky. Kane's key was inside his room. Kane's door was shut. I don't know, the keyhole is sticky. The stickiness of the lock, why? If my memory is right, the Marquise had ordered Sean to re-glue the heels of her shoes. Capital's high-end shoemakers usually make shoes with a specific type of glue. Although the glue is easy to dissolve with cold water, those shoemakers still use it over anything else. Partly because no noble lady would be walking in water, but mostly because the glue has no odor to it. And I wager that Sean carries a jar of the stuff in case of an emergency. Oui, he does. The glue would explain why the door was stuck for no reason. Only a detective with your level of talent could find the connection between such things. That does include your nose, by the way. Which evidence can connect the glue, the lock, and the key? I already did the door lock thing. Smell alone can't be used as evidence, but it does give me an idea. The smell of the door lock and the key at the scene weren't the same. Now that I think about it, that means... He was plugged in after that. Huh? So the key in the door now is not the one we saw when the door was opened. Impossible! What went wrong? Have you forgotten the key cannot plug into other rooms' locks? Every key is handmade by a good blacksmith. They look similar but cannot be inserted into wrong locks. I know that, but you don't have to insert it. The only thing that matters is if it looks like it's inserted in. Looks like? I did see the key stuck in the lock. If you break the key in half and stick the shaft in the lock with glue, then it wouldn't matter if it fit or not. Wild guess. The glue could be torn off. Ma chérie? Yes, but it would be quite difficult. If that's so, then I could tell who the murderer is with ease. With just one thing, you can prove yourself innocent. Show the shoe glue. Show the key. Demonstrate setting up the key. God. Excuse me. Let's see. Let's demonstrate. We'll take turns doing it, but the killer could pretend not to know. That's true. Show the glue? Take your glue out. Whomever has the glue-covered key is the murderer then. Correct. It's simple. Take out your room keys and open the door. Let's begin with the most suspicious three. I believe you're all anxious to prove your innocence. It's my pleasure. We should have done this much sooner. Indeed. Well, take your keys and open the door one by one. Ladies first, mademoiselle. My pleasure, Marquis Harlock. Elegant took her key out and approached her door without hesitation. The key slid into the lock, turned, and the door opened. She's always so calm and certain. I dare say if she was the murderer, she'd be a terrifying culprit to face. Next, Marquis Harlock. If this can prove my innocence. Lunik took out his key and approached his door, though his hands trembled slightly. The key missed the hole once or twice, and I could see sweat beginning to form in his fur. After several unsuccessful attempts, his wife stepped over to him, whispered something to him, and guided his hands. This time, the key slipped easily into the keyhole and turned with a click, and Lunik's shoulders slumped in relief. Now the result is clear. Sean, it's your... We've all opened our doors, and now there's only Sean left. It must be him. If all three keys work on their respective doors, it shows that Roman's hypothesis cannot stand. In other words, we'll have to start over from the beginning. It is not foolish to jump so quickly to a conclusion. As you say, Sean, let's begin. Sean reached into his bag and froze. What? My key is missing. Maybe you should empty it to make sure. I don't think it will... Empty the bag! No! Lunik snatched the bag from Sean and dumped the contents on the ground. A dozen copper coins, a silver coin, half a key covered with glue, and a piece of blue crystal fell on the carpet. Sean staggered back against the wall, clutching his vest tightly with both hands, and looked around with wide eyes. I've already guessed earlier. So early. What about the loud noises? Those had to be Kane's falling body. If I were the murderer, I wouldn't have had the time to kill him and prepare the medicine. The bell rang just after the noise of his collapse. I couldn't have had time to. No. This is all wrong. Lunik just testified that you didn't come on time when he rang the bell. I was just a few seconds late. A few seconds couldn't buy me enough time to complete the tricks you made up, right? Tricks? Indeed, you were clever. What? For example, the loud noise. Not the sound of Kane's fall. Not before. Was not from Kane's falling body. What else could it be? Such loud noises must be the noise of a body falling down. Well, his body's in a chair. I have two pieces of evidence to prove that the voice was not caused by Kane's fall. I think they meant to say noise. Firstly, what evidence could prove that the loud sound wasn't caused by Kane's body? Well, I mean, he was in a chair, right? Corpse was on the chair, yeah. He fell into the chair. Even if he collapsed back with no support at all, most of the impact would be cushioned by the chair. If he fell back like that, there wouldn't have been nearly enough noise. The sound of heavy objects falling to the ground was caused by something else. Second piece of evidence I want to present is... that shit falling down? Suitcase in Sean's room. The suitcase is heavy enough that it weighs as much as... I mean, they're both extremely heavy. Throwing them around would be more than loud enough. So you killed Kane, then went back to your own room, threw the suitcase, and rushed to the Marquis' room. If you made the noise in your room, you could easily reach the Marquis in time without arousing suspicion. Don't be ridiculous! Why would I kill someone I don't even know? We'll get to that. Quick Q&A! The lethal weapon is... well, a dagger. Dagger, of course. The murderer didn't cover this up. Modus operandi. Arrange the occurrences chronologically from top to bottom by dragging the chips in each... oh, this again. Okay. There we go. I think it's obvious the murderer is the murderer. Well, I think we're saying he's the murderer. God. He had both the time and the motive. Nonsense! Be patient, I'll explain the motive. Though Sean denied that he had met Kane before, one thing caught my attention. There's a blue crystal in Sean's bag, which looks just like Kane's pendant. Kane had worn that pendant for as long as I've known him. Maybe you two are old friends? No need to answer that. I think I know why you killed him. Why do you say that? Two old friends reunited after many years of separation, but instead of a happy reunion, all you got was rage. Let me guess, it's all about betrayal? What are you talking about? For example, you promised that you would recommend Kane to the Marquis when you got the chance. Then he would finally achieve his dream of becoming a cook for the nobility. But it seems that he didn't keep your promise, because you didn't think you'd ever see him again. Actually, if it weren't for the snowstorm, you two probably would have never crossed paths. You committed the crime when Kane lost his temper. Done. Investigator is a part of the suspect list, yeah? Me, he'd be like, it's me, I did it. I did it. It was all me. Oh, it's the comic book. Kane went upstairs after dinner, and you followed him soon after. One of Kane's actions confused me at the time. He'd pulled off his pendant and was letting it hang from his hand. My guess is I think Kane is sending a signal to someone. I recognize you. You noticed Kane's signal and followed him upstairs. What I meant to do. You were talking in his room, and then the ring from the bell from Lunic's room happened. That was the first bell ring. Kane mentioned your betrayal and knocked over the mug and candlestick. That's the crashing sound we heard. You felt endangered when Kane faced you, so you decided to strike first with your dagger. He collapsed into the chair without any noise. You took Kane's key, then broke your own key and stuck it in the lock with some glue you used to fix Solar's shoes. You didn't pull out the dagger because you feared that blood would get on your clothes. After all, you only needed to deny that the dagger was yours. Then you went out, locked the door from the outside, returned to your room, and made the noise by tossing the suitcase. The Marquis noticed you hadn't arrived and rang the bell for a second time. You entered to serve just in time. After that, you pretended to be surprised and ran out. You smashed open the door, then exchanged the key you had stuck in the door with Kane's key. That is how it happened. Just admit it, Sean. You cannot escape my logic. Fine, I did it. Sean's transverse pupils looked straight at me, and I couldn't see any emotions in his eyes. Whether it was sadness, fear, or despair, I couldn't tell. I didn't expect that either. I was just scared. His appearance, panting, looming over me with those red eyes, he looked like he was going to. Sean's hands were shaking, grasping his sleeves tightly. But you're the one who struck the first and deadliest blow. According to the Helios Code, whosoever murders another person shall be hanged without special justification. I'm sorry, but your excuse is too weak to counter your punishment. I really don't want to be hanged. I really don't want to be hanged. Isn't there any other options for me? I can't say no, even if we wanted to exercise the rights under the Helios Code. In fact, we are going to apply Helios Code. In the event that a case cannot be immediately brought to trial, as long as there is a qualified detective present, a judgment may be pronounced under a detective's discretion. That sounds wrong. Even if you will not escape judgment, except that you... Tarzan, let me finish. As I was trying to say, according to the code, you have 10 minutes to make your peace. If you don't want to be hanged, do something. Like a confession? It depends on your definition of confession. Alright. Sean set up his handkerchief on the chair back, bowed his head, and meekly followed Tarzan up the stairs. Suddenly, several loud noises came from upstairs. What happened? I'm a little scared. Let me have a look. Open the door now! Tarzan used his shoulder to batter open the door to Kane's room. What happened? Sean ran inside and jammed the door with something. Ah! The door swung open, knocking the nightstand aside. Sean leaned back against the chair where Kane was sitting, holding the dagger, sweating profusely. He clenched his teeth, closed his eyes, and thrust the dagger deep into his stomach. Thick blood gushed out around the blade and onto the handle, covering the fine carvings in layers of crimson. Sean had used the same dagger to break the commandment of "Thou shalt not kill," but he also atoned for his crime with it. We just stood there and watched life slowly ebb from Sean's body. Chèvre. Chèvre. Oh, that's goat cheese. Goat milk. Goat in French. Now we're in big trouble. When the snow stops, I need to go to the judiciary to testify. But first, we need to take care of Sean and Kane. Roman, take this up to my bedside. Tarzan threw me the key to Kane's room, picked up the broken key, and stuffed it into his pocket. Drivey, get Heron up here and ask him if he would perform a funeral. But if he refuses to perform funeral rites for a suicide, tell him Sean was hanged by me with Roman's permission. Okay. I got confused on what was happening at first. I thought we were in a flashback, but no, apparently we weren't. Heron came upstairs with his rosary and his cross. I pulled down the ladder to the attic. The attic was dark. I started regretting leaving the candle downstairs. When my eyes adjusted to darkness, I carefully walked around the trap door on the floor and hung the key on the key holder. I went back down to the corridor and met Tarzan dragging the body. Roman, help me drag them down to the yard. As long as they're kept outdoors, they won't rot in the freezing cold. His head is moving. Heron's already recited scriptures for them. When the snow stops, I'll ask the church to give them a decent funeral. Ah, well. Dragging two stiff bodies, we went downstairs along with the spiral stairs. Should we leave the dagger here or pull it out? I don't know. Just leave it there for the coroner to confirm. Right. Tarzan opened the door and dragged Kane and Sean from the tavern. Maybe I'll go to sleep now. I went upstairs. All the doors are locked except Kane's and Sean's. Everyone went to bed, whether they can fall asleep or not. I need to go to bed too, though I probably can't fall asleep. I locked the door, hid the key under the pillow, and then blew the candle out. Haven't seen you in a while. Ah, yeah. Turns out you didn't forget me, Sean. Sure. So you merely forgot that promise you made, right? Sorry, I haven't had a chance to recommend you. No chance at all? Being the Marquis' valet doesn't bring you even a single chance to even mention my name? Sorry. Even if you didn't fulfill your promise, I still hope that we could keep in touch. Don't smash things! Just wait a moment, don't be so angry. Even if you failed to keep your word, I always thought of you as a friend. Don't come near me! This is what I wanted to tell you after I calmed down, but you never gave me the chance. I guess that was the end of chapter 1. Day 3, 25th December, 1285. I always seem to oversleep on snowy days. The thin gray light coming from the window, half smothered by snow, is barely enough to wake me up. I climbed out of bed, still feeling dizzy. The snow hasn't stopped yet. The tavern was quiet. The sound of chatting and clattering mugs are all absent. The doors in the corridor are shut, even Kane's and Sean's. It's almost enough to make me wonder if last night actually happened. That maybe it was just a nightmare. I walked down the stairs. The lodgers sat in the hall drinking. Silence reigned. Peter, Giannis, and Elegant were sharing a table. Peter was practically trying to drown himself with cider. Giannis took him by the wrist and set the cup down. Benefits of having a huge friend, I guess. Elegant sat by and watched quietly. Occasionally took a sip from her drink. Vincel, Solar, and Lunac sat at the counter. The Marquis and Marquis's clothing were even messier than when they walked into the tavern yesterday. Vincel was busy, nervously fiddling with his bow-tied coat. Thrivy, Anzox, and Heron were seated around the fireplace, staring at their mugs without raising their heads. If Thrivy had brought a Plague Doctor mask, I'm sure he would have been wearing it. Tarzan was sitting by the stove in the kitchen. The fire wasn't lit. I counted them one by one. There was no sign of Kane and Sean. Ah, you're finally awake. What happened? I walked to the table by the fireplace. You know what happened last night, right? Anzox came up and whispered in my ear. Peter is taking things pretty poorly. Probably lucky Giannis is by his side. Maybe you should talk to him. Of course. Without Sean, the Marquis and Marquise are also in a bit of a mess. Looks like they weren't used to getting themselves dressed. Why are you telling me this? Tarzan lifted the curtain and came into the hall. Good morning, everyone. I hope the incident last night didn't interrupt your rest here. Bit late for that. As the proprietor of White Star Tavern and Kane's friend, I'm sorry for what happened here last night. But I can assure you that you have no need to worry about your safety here at the White Star. All the locks are crafted by professional blacksmiths, and I personally guarantee you that they are safe and solid. And I can assure Detective Roman and I will ensure your safety until the blizzard outside is over. Just decided to volunteer me like that. By the way, Merry Crit... Peter suddenly shook off Giannis' hand and stood up. 2 people died and you're telling us Merry fucking Christmas? Damn. Tarzan froze. As far as I could recall, he always seemed to deal with all kinds of stuff in a very flexible and quick-witted way that didn't match his appearance. But this time, well... And Kane, he was a regular here. How could you pretend he's a stranger for fuck's sake? Are you that fucking cold-hearted, you? Admittedly, I could understand Sarzen's reaction. Sometimes trying to separate yourself from events and staying professional is the only good option. Giannis grabbed Peter by the shoulder and forced him back into his chair before Sarzen could do anything in response. Pete, for God's sake, sit down and shut up. Yep, totally. He speaks, finally. At any rate, I don't know how long until the snow stops. Let's just all try and stay calm. Sarzen, I'm sorry. I was just scared. The fact that he sounded like Sean didn't sit well with me. What? What if another It won't, I promise. The blue dragon gently patted Peter's shoulder, then cleared his throat and straightened himself. For the time being, why don't we all just stay here in the lobby and get to know each other? That way we can keep track of everyone. And if anyone wants to leave the hall, one person at a time, please. No groups, no pairing off. How does that sound? We looked at each other and nodded. I hope Sarzen had something prepared to pass the time, considering everyone is stuck downstairs today. Maybe I can chat with them one by one. I could also go upstairs and get my book to read. Let me find a place to sit down and talk with some people. Where should I sit? Don't want to sit down. I dragged a chair over to the fireplace. That rabbit is really quite noisy. He and Kane have known each other for years, and he thinks it's not unreasonable for him to be in such a state. Forgive me for saying this, but I'm not particularly comfortable being near him. Why does it matter? Once the snow subsides tomorrow, we'll part ways and be strangers again. Being God's children, we ought to treat each other with kindness. The children should know better than to shout unless they want to be scolded. As Anzox rose to get another drink, Heron touched Anzox's elbow with his empty mug. Would you mind filling mine as well, dear boy? Didn't take you for a drinker, father. Anzox balanced 2 mugs in one hand and his lute in the other as he headed towards the counter. Seriously, if performing doesn't work out, he'll do well as a waiter. Anzox filled the mugs and returned. Here you go, father. God bless you, my child. The red dragon shrugged and sat down. I guess we'll go in order. I moved next to Anzox. What do you want? He instinctively held the lute protectively as I approached. Oh, stop being so paranoid. It's been a while since I last saw Kane. I didn't expect something like this would. Yeah. Anzox sighed softly and fell silent. A good drinking buddy, even though he never requested a song from me. Dragged a hair over to the fireplace. Oh, did I miss that? Oh. I might have done an autocorrect with my brain. If he did, wouldn't it be just like that Bible verse? Which one? Give not that which is holy to the dogs, nor cast you your pearls before a swine. Sure. But still, he is much better than you as a drinker. Peter's outburst sort of shocked me. That's what small animals do. Go into hysterics? They tend to attach great importance to kinship and friendship. Family and friends make it easier to survive in a harsh and unforgiving world. Sensible. I assume you also find relationships important. Wolves and their packs and all that. Socializing with people is one of the required skills of a good detective. When will the snowstorm stop tomorrow? What do I look like? A village witch? What should I know? How should I know? But I thought you just said, that was me trying to raise spirits. Would you rather I say something like, oh no, the snow will keep falling and we'll all be trapped in here until the spring thaw? If I said something like that, I'd have my tongue cut out. So it's better to say something nice. The event last night. Thanks, by the way. For what? For the clue you found at the scene last night. You're more than welcome. I'll be the first to arrive. Help you investigate next time. If you were the first to arrive at the scene, you'd either be the victim or the murderer. Sure. By the way, can I ask you something? Why, certainly. Did you happen to touch my nightstand? What? Of course not. I'm not the kind of guy I was when we first met. Never mind. I think it's warmer sitting by your side of the fire. Naturally. I looked at Heron. Pretty rough Christmas Eve. Indeed. It's all a part of God's ineffable plan. What? If only we listened to God's words, none of these despicable acts would have happened. Here we go again. Surrounded by the goodness and kindness of God, you will become a noble person naturally. People have done far more despicable things for what others would call noble purposes. Snow keeps falling down. Also part of the ineffable plan. Unlike the flood that washes all sins away, no matter how heavy the snow is, it can only cover sin. I'm getting more and more confused. So what? All the sins of Rimph are buried deep down under the heavy snow, but the snow eventually melts. No matter how deep sins are buried, they shall be revealed by the light of the sun. Anyway, thank you for giving Kane and Sean last rites yesterday. Letting the deceased embark on the journey to heaven with dignity is what I ought to do. There's no need to thank me. Is that so? By the way, may I ask you something? What? Did Sean commit suicide? Of course not. Hope he doesn't know that I bite my thumb when I'm nervous. Is that so? I suppose I have no reason to doubt your credibility. Right. His priestly smile made me inexplicably uncomfortable. After all, you don't seem the sort to do something as despicable as lie to a friar out of a noble cause. Yeah, no, not at all. Before Heron could continue, I moved seats. I sit down beside Thrivey. Can I help you? I just wanted to thank you. For the autopsy, there's really no need. I believe any qualified doctor would do the same if it meant keeping others safe and sane. Although my judgment may not be as good as a professional coroner's, I do try my best. If there's anything unsatisfactory with my work, please do tell me, Mr. Detective. I will try my best to correct it. I appreciate your enthusiasm, Dr. Thrivey, but let's hope we don't need such cooperation in the near future. Ah, pardon my enthusiasm, then. Is being a doctor difficult? Why are you asking this all of a sudden, Mr. Detective? Why do I think being a doctor is hard work? The medicine chest is heavy, or workplace is what? Medicine chest of yours is rather heavy. It must be tough to travel with that. Sort of. The Karnak district had a dysentery outbreak recently. I went through 3 bottles of castor oil with my patients. Castor oil? I thought last year it was clove oil that worked on dysentery. Medical science, such as it is constantly improving. If you happen to fall ill sometime, I'll be glad to have you as my patient. I'm just curious, what exactly was that weird-looking book you had last night? The cover had a bunch of symbols that were completely incomprehensible to me. Unsurprising, the book is written with a cipher to prevent others from accessing its knowledge. Maybe I shouldn't have asked. It's quite alright. Many ask that kind of question. I'm used to it. May I ask you something? Have you seen anyone rummaging through my nightstand? No. Well, if you're not suspecting me, it's not good to suspect a colleague, even if the partnership is temporary. Well then, a toast to your health, Mr. Detective. Thrivey raised his mug and shook it in the air, then took a sip. I don't want to sit down. Your performance yesterday was splendid indeed, Mr. Roman. Thanks for the compliment. Mon Dieu, I should be the one to say that. Were it not for you, Monsieur Detective, that fiendish goat would have succeeded in framing me. May that goat rot in the pit that with traitors and murderers. Nevertheless, Sean has... No, do not even speak that name before me again. As you wish, my dear. Solar turned away from Lunik, her ears flat and tail lashing in anger. You needn't be so angry, Marquis Harlock. Once the snow stops, I'm sure you'll have more than enough time to make it to His Majesty's Christmas feast. Bah, it is already too late. It's Christmas today. I am sure to miss the feast if the snow doesn't stop by noon. There's also the matter of my carriage. Oh, la malchance, le malheur. I'm sure that this is merely a temporary setback for you, Marquis. Lunik rolled his eyes and sighed heavily. Do not try to flatter me, merchant. I sat beside Vincel. What brings you to me, my good detective? Why did you come to Rimph? I assume it's quite a long trip from your home to Rimph, right? Certainly, I haven't traveled this far from Alley Town in years. Sounds like Kitty. When you play fight with her when she was a kitten. Oh yeah, that's true. Kitty cats do that. Is this your second time here? Not really. Vincel paused a bit and continued fiddling with his gloves. It's my first time visiting the capital. I guess telling you to have a pleasant trip would be in poor taste. Oh no, not at all. His gloves was already on his hands properly, but he kept fiddling the edges. Didn't you say before you might hire me for a case? Indeed, my good detective. Anything you want to share about that so I'll have time to prepare? It's just investigating a trivial matter. Easy as it sounds, no need to over-prepare. Alright. Serious. The spice business must be making money lately, given the price of pepper in the city just tripled. The same goes for cinnamon and cloves. Even the price of basil has gone up a lot. I know it's the holidays, but surely it can't be that expensive. It's because spice shipments haven't arrived at port yet. Merchants are still consuming their inventories while waiting for that cargo. Naturally, the price goes up as supplies dwindle. Those gloves of yours look very stylish. Vincel stretched his bow tie and put it together. Great minds think alike. I always prefer thick gloves, especially those thick enough to retain their shape while empty. Ah, of course. To Christmas, to snow. Our mugs clicked and I could smell the aroma of pale ale mixed with fresh basil in his cup as he drank. As his drink sloshed. I sat down beside Lunik. He didn't seem to notice me. Such terrible weather. When will the snow even stop? I think it could still go for some time. C'est mauvais. I knew we should have left earlier. If only I knew about this awful snow. I'll be a laughing stock if I miss the king's Christmas banquet. Just put these two words together. That's funny. Come to think of it, how are my carriage horses? Are they seen too? Not quite sure about that part. When will the snow even stop? I think it could still go for some time. Oh, I already did this. Oops. Have you been to the King's Christmas banquet before, my lord? I'm curious about what they serve. Ah, an excellent topic. Lunik cleared his throat, then narrated with enthusiasm while drinking his mulled wine. Last year, the royal chef himself pushed up the serving cart, accompanied by his 4 apprentices. On the serving cart was the largest, most tender roast swan that you could ever imagine. The swan even wore a small gold crown on its head. The roasted swan was so large that all 5 chefs had to carefully push the serving cart, for fear that the swan would tip over and ruin the arrangement. Then the royal chef cut the golden and crispy swan in front of us. The swan's belly was filled with apples, figs, carrots, and onions, all of which had absorbed with sweet gravy and fat during the roasting. All the invited nobles had a set of copper cutlery in front of them, and the king had a silver set. The chef divided the goose and gravy-absorbed vegetables into each plate. C'était magnifique! I would say so much about just one dish. By the way, if there are other disputed cases in the future, feel free to send for me. Absolutely, should I encounter such a case again. Though your performance was less than spectacular last night, I still admired the last time. Especially when you dared the criminal to strike at you with the armor under your coat. Your bravery is remarkable as a detective. Are you getting used to your room, Marquis? Pardon? Well, the room, though unfashionable, is clean and the bed was comfortable. But the most serious problem is that my servant was involved in that awful event. Now I have nobody to serve me. If that's his only takeaway from this, then I don't know what to say. I didn't utter a word and he didn't seem to notice me at all. Solar was sitting next to Lunix, so I felt uneasy about talking to her. It would be better if Solar is alone. Oh, they don't even let you talk to her. I guess this is the last one. Peter was face down on the table, his mug close to hand. His back occasionally twitched like he was sobbing. Giannis was gently patting him on the back. At least gently by his standards. Elegant sat by them with a full cup in her hand. Wonder if that's the same cup from yesterday. There, it's okay. It's not okay. If Cain was here, he wouldn't want to see you cry. Don't try to tell me what Cain would want. I stroked Peter's head gently. What? What kind of person was Cain like? Then Peter lowered his head. Oh, he didn't say much. Any idea how long the snow will keep falling? I hope so. Peter pushed my hand aside and laid on the table. Peter? I know Cain's incident is a great shock for you. To be honest, I'm just as shocked and confused. Uh-huh. But since we don't know how long it'll be until the snow stops, you should probably try to calm down and keep your head for the time being. I'll try. I better not bother him. I looked to Giannis, who's patting Peter's back. I still can't believe what happened to Cain. Yeah. I'm still expecting him to come downstairs and chat with me over a cup of ale. Like, about that damn seasickness cure he came up with a while back that never worked. Or some amulets he's been collecting from some weird shop or something. Well, seasickness? I'm just glad you're keeping Peter calm. I don't know how long he'd have kept going. Rabbits are like that. It ain't impossible to scare one to death. Just be careful. Huh? I know you're trying to help him. Maybe you should try a more delicate method. I'm not gonna break his back if that's what you mean. No, not that. Hey, Giannis, did you poke around inside my nightstand? What are you talking? Do I look like a petty thief to you? Yeah, you're right. Never mind. Yeah, you may want to pat him more lightly. Like this? I think you can figure it out. When I looked at Elegant, she made eye contact and nodded. What was it you wanted to say before the incident last night? I didn't get the chance to ask. I forgot! So? As it was interrupted, maybe it was something should not be uttered at all. My curiosity will be the death in me. You are not a cat. Curiosity killed the cat. About the notebook. I grow tired of explaining the same thing repeatedly. You haven't explained a thing. Yeah, I know, right? Curiosity killed the cat. The purpose in Rimph. I'm still curious about the reason you come here. I thought you had already figured it out. Is it a good time to tell me? I came here for an investigation. Why else would I be here? Perhaps the carrot stew? Well, at least you didn't cover it either way. By the way, have you ever touched my nightstand? What do you think? You have. And do you think that's true? I broke eye contact with her. I mean, I think there's nowhere else to sit. Yeah. Guess I can go to my room now? Do you want to go upstairs? I'm going to grab a book. It's a bit boring just sitting here. Please wait a sec. I'm going to lock up the cellar. Why? Just locking it up in case someone decides to break out the good stuff. There's enough ale at the counter. Keep an eye on everyone while I'm away. Tarzan went down into the cellar. Yeah, no, it's the same thing. I go to the cellar? Tarzan came out of the cellar, glanced at the counter, and scratched his head in confusion. That's weird. What is it? I remember leaving my keychain on the counter, but now I can't find it. Maybe you put it somewhere else? Maybe. I'll keep looking. Okay, I'm going up to go upstairs. Wait! Tarzan pointed the stairs. I turned around and saw Thrivey on the stair. I'm just going to grab a book and come down again. I won't take too long. He scrambled up the stairs, 2 steps at a time. Honestly, that surprised me given his size. Probably be best to wait. I just hope nothing else happens. I don't think there'll be much trouble. Only one person can be alone at a time. And I doubt anyone's in the mood to die. That's all well and good, but it's better for everyone if you just stop there. Don't take what Peter just said Don't take what Peter just said too seriously. Of course, I work in a tavern. I've been called worse things than that. I was going to try to comfort you, but I guess you don't need it. I wouldn't object to a little comfort. Huh? I'm just trying to satisfy your wish to comfort others. After all, it's my job to please my customers. Not in that way, though. What are you talking about? What do we do today? Well, I could set up the darts board and see if anyone's game. Sure, give emotionally compromised people sharp objects. I'll be watching. Nothing will happen. I could think of a few things that could. Would you stop that? Hold on, I just remembered something. Spit it out. Why aren't you feeding Marquis' horses? I told Giannis to bring the horses back last night, but he said they died, froze to death. So I had him drag them to the yard this morning. Why bother with that? Can't let good meat go to waste. Oh, wow, okay. And say I'm looking forward to a pleasant meal of horse meat. Thrivey trotted down the stairs, his book under his arm. Could you do me a favor, Mr. Detective? What is it? I'm having a great deal of trouble with the ladder upstairs. Could you want me to pull it up into the attic? The white dragon looked aside and nodded. If you would be so kind. I grabbed the rope and slowly lifted the ladder into the attic. The ladder is heavy, even for me. No wonder Thrivey had so much trouble with it. The ladder reached the attic. I tied the rope on the wooden handle on the corner wall and went downstairs. Tarzan took the dartboard from under the counter. Since everyone seems a bit bored, I recommend playing a game of darts to pass time. I'm only offering the dartboard and darts. Any bets you want to place are up to you. Yay! Anzox bounced up from his seat with an eager grin. I guess the idea of possible loot or sense of challenge had kindled some long-lost instincts from his ancient dragon ancestors. I'm not going to participate. I will watch first. I shall watch. It is tempting. Well, I'll watch as well. Fine by me, but I'm going to check my luggage upstairs so I can leave immediately once the snow stops. Before anyone could interrupt, Vincel put down his cup and walked upstairs. Why was he so desperate to leave? I think I'll just watch. Oh no, you don't. You're gonna play too. Giannis pinched Peter's ear and pulled him out of his seat. I suppose I can join in and see what happens. Well, that makes 7 participants. Anzox, Thrivey, Vincel, Giannis, Elgin, Peter. Oh, and myself too. What about you, Roman? It's just a practice round, no bets. Sure. Of course I'm in. Frankly speaking, I practiced for it. That makes 8. What are we waiting for when everyone is here? Let's get started. I'm ready too. Sorry for the wait, everyone. It doesn't matter. You've come at just the right time. Zarzan lifted up the dartboard and hung it on the wall behind the counter. With its peeling black paint and riddled with hundreds of dart holes, the dartboard looked as old as its tavern. He took 3 darts from the groove behind the board and put them on the table. 3 darts only. Throw them in turns. I won't give you more in case you toss them around. Also, and this should be obvious, don't stick them in the table. Well, now that was just tempting fate. Anzox walked in front of the table first. Stand just behind this brick. Actually really fun to play competitively. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm terrible at darts. I'm terrible at darts. But it's fun to try. Yeah, ready, fire. 220, 1.41 in total. Well, 220 and 1, 41 in total. What's wrong with the last dart? I expected you to be an expert seeing as you were so active. Next. Why is it so high up? Doubled 19, tripled 3, and 3. 50 points. Wow, a bit of a fluke if you ask me. Congratulations. Next. I've not played darts in a long time, so please forgive my humble showing. Vincel took the darts in his left hand and took aim. 5, 20, tripled 1, 28 in total. Sure enough, oh well. Next. I'm ready. Triple 5, half bullseye, 20, 60 in total. Just so. Next. Should I hold it like this? Almost. Just be careful and don't throw them at the wall. Especially don't throw it at the pictures or else. Or else? 60 points in total with 2 misses. What sort of beginner's luck is this? Next. If I may. 20, tripled 20, miss 80 in total. Ah, it seems luck favors me as well. Did she expose herself or not? It's my turn. Roman, mind tracking my score? 120, bullseye for 50, 71 in total. As to be expected. It's your turn. Move your, oh shoot. Move your paws to throw the dart. Half bullseye, 25. I mean... 25. This is hanky. Half bullseye, 25. 75 points in total. Second place. Looks like you bested me. Is it really true that you are practicing every day? This is just a warm-up. Next one will be the real thing, but first, let me find my keychain. That one? Harvey pointed at the keychain on the counter. Ah, that's it. Where the hell did it go before? Peter pulled me aside. Roman, can I ask you to do me a favor? What is it? I just want to send a letter to Hella. Could you help write it for me, please? Hella, the little hair you had your eye on? Yeah, that's her. Do you know if she can read? She can ask someone else to read it for her. Okay, then just tell me what you want to say and I'll write it out. Really? Thank you so much. Suddenly I recalled that we could only leave the lobby alone today. Could we do this some other time? We're not supposed to leave the hall together. You just got Peter Rabbit? Oh! Yep, Peter Rabbit. Yeah, I think I got it when I first played. I was like, oh, that's Peter Rabbit. That's funny. Okay, I suppose I can wait. The next round will begin shortly. Get ready. Ah, yes, I'm coming. Peter rubbed his hands and walked to the counter. After a few rounds, Vincel had lost all of his 45 sight fogger. Though it wasn't a big amount for him, he looked mournful as he walked back to the counter. Giannis turned the tables in the later rounds and even won a little. Elegant pretended to be novice and finally managed to lose only a small sum of money. Anzox and Sarzin were in first and second place. I figured that Sarzin was going to win the whole pot with his techniques, but Anzox got unexpected 360 points and won. Seems luck didn't bless the two rookies, as Peter and Thrivey tried hard but could only break even. I was not in a good mood, so I lost more than Elegant did. Sarzin was absent for a few of the later rounds because he was busy preparing Christmas dinner in the kitchen. I can't manage this all by myself. Is there anyone who can give me a hand? It would be better if Kane had been there. I'll do it! Peter followed Sarzin into the kitchen. According to custom, there is no lunch for Christmas Day. The poor can save a meal, while the rich can ready their stomachs to prepare for a huge dinner, one of the few customs everyone could partake in. Mom would have made me help Auntie with dinner. Well, who would resist a second chance? Opportunity like that. No wonder it's only available when I go home. I don't know why. Originally, I didn't want to go home. Now I feel a bit homesick. Everyone was resting at the table, and the few who were awake did not seem to be in a talkative mood. Anzox was playing the lute. What should I do now? Guess I'll chat. I started walking toward the corner Anzox was in. The lute was gently pressed against his body as he plucked the strings softly and hummed with the tune. That song sounds a little familiar. What is it? It's an old lullaby, so it's not strange that you think it's familiar. Anzox continued to hum, and I sat nearby to listen. The others in the pub seemed to sleep soundly, although I didn't know why. I just can't relax. Probably because of Anzox. He seems like the type to start playing fast-paced dance music the second everyone starts nodding off. Think you could play something a little more Christmassy? I'll do that after dinner. I'll be in a better mood once I have a full stomach. The smell of mutton gradually wafted in from the kitchen. Anzox and I couldn't help turning our heads. Christmas dinner is almost ready. Could you guys help bring the tables together? Okay, I'll start serving dinner when everyone is here. Me, Heron, and Giannis started moving the round tables, placing the long table top on top, and laying out the red and green striped tablecloth. It was getting dark and everyone gathered at the table. Merry Christmas! Let us hope it will be. Surely it will be. Peter came out from the kitchen, carrying a cauldron. Misty white steam floated out of the gap in the lid. The pot was so large that I could only see the tops of Peter's ears behind it. Peter stumbled near the long table and slammed the pot onto the table, splashing some gravy. I have to admit, that's one advantage to having such a small figure. Even Peter was a bit clumsy with the dishes. No one would complain. If a big guy like Giannis slammed down a pot like that, people would think he wanted a fight. Oh, sorry. Well, next time you need to carry a big pot of stuff, let me know. I'll do it. Aaron accidentally dropped the serving spoon on the floor and asked Anzox, who was near the kitchen, to help him get another one. Tarzan also came out with 2 large plates of grilled meat and baked apples. There are still apples in this season? If stored properly, you can eat them all year round. Although this plate is my last stock. As soon as Sarzin set the last few dishes down, everyone started to reach out. Wait a moment. Eh? Giannis' hand hung in the air, his eyes looking a bit vicious. Given that it's Christmas, I think we should pray before eating, to thank the God who gives us food. Well, I suppose it wouldn't hurt. Mon Dieu, someone mentioned this before Father Heron. Wait, I don't have my rosary. I might need to go upstairs to get it. Heron stood up strenuously, preparing to squeeze through half the table to get to the stairs. Relax, I'll go fetch it. The quicker it's done, the quicker we eat. Wait, his door's still locked. Anzox seemed not to hear and strolled upstairs with his lute. That red-scaled bard better hurry up. There was a muffled sound from upstairs. What happened? Oh, great. Oh, dear. I should not have spoken. Anzox must have just tripped or something, alright? The carpet on the second floor is thick, so he's probably fine. Take it easy. Tarzan quickly left the table and headed upstairs. I also ran up to follow. The closer to the stairs I got, the more the smell of stew and spices in the tavern became mixed with a familiar, wet, coppery smell. It smells like blood. It was more than just a fall. I ran up the steps quickly, taking them two at a time and clutching the handrail as I rushed up along the inside of the spiral staircase. It was Anzox. He was lying on the carpet, motionless. The wooden ladder leading to the attic had fallen. It had struck him on his head. Bright red blood spread down across Anzox's darker crimson scales and leaking into the thick carpet. The heavy wooden ladder was still pressing against his head like a boot pressing down on top of a melon. The hemp rope, which had originally tied the ladder to a wooden handle, swung like a pendulum in the air. Tarzan stood there, stunned for a moment before he rushed forward to pull the twine. Anzox! The ladder slid up into the loft along the guide rails, making a sharp friction noise. Ivy squeezed past me and crouched beside Anzox. Wait, don't disturb the sea. He's still alive! What? Still alive? His head is covered in blood. Being covered with blood doesn't equal death. Ivy pulled a white handkerchief from his pocket and pressed it against Anzox's head. The fabric slowly turned red from the wound, spread across it like spilled wine in a tablecloth. How can you... Ivy grabbed Anzox's tail and knuckled down firmly against the ventral side. The flaccid tail curled up at once and did not slacken again until the hand was released. You see, he's still alive. If we can stop the bleeding, get him into bed, and apply a poultice, he should recover. You really are calm about this. Not to interrupt, but this ladder isn't exactly light. Could you... Lunik grabbed Anzox's armpits. Ivy supported his head, and I lifted Anzox's legs. Then we lifted him side together. Once we were out of the way, Tarzan loosened his grip and let the ladder fall back down. Anzox will not wake up for a while. Carry him upstairs and put him in his bed. When I count trois, we lift him upstairs together. Un, deux, trois. Lunik and I carried Anzox's limp body up into the attic. Why do unconscious ones feel heavier than usual? Over to the bed now. Alright, just leave him to me. Do something else and stay out of my way. Ivy sat on the edge of the bed, pulling bottles and tins from his medicine box. What's the situation? I don't know. It will be some time before he regains consciousness. I'm just relieved you could take care of him. I climbed down the wooden ladder. Is that foolish bard alright? Well, he's not going to die. Good. Well then, let us begin searching. What? Do you assume Anzox's injury was an accident? Isn't it because the handle I used to secure the rope broke? Perhaps. Elegant shrugged. We were all downstairs at the time of the Anzox accident, so surely it was just an accident, but it fell off somehow. As much as I prefer to go back and eat, I'm already hungry enough to inspire my predatory instincts. We should try to finish dinner first. In weather like this, stew gets cold quickly. And I haven't eaten anything today. How could you eat with such a problem stuck in your throat? Forget it. Let's finish it quick. I've heard of a foreign general who had no time to drink after pouring a glass of warm wine, and then went to battle with the enemy general. When he returned victorious, the wine was still warm. Then let me do a simple survey to find out what the reason is. I took the keychain from Tarzan and straightened my collar. What the crime scene has been. It is fine. I've seen it all, and I can rebuild it. Should I drag Anzox back down the ladder? If you must do this to solve the case, I'll do it instead. Isn't it too cruel to let Anzox go back there? Thanks for your hard work. I will pull up the ladder a little so you may slowly climb under the ladder and will not hurt yourself. Here? Lift up, yes. Go somewhere else to search. I have not finished yet. Elegant squatted down and grabbed Sarzan's horns to position him. Hey, easy there! My key is locked inside my room. Keychain is pinned around my waist. Take it yourself and return it afterwards. Okay. Wait, the door's open again. Okay. The plot thickens. Yes, it does. And I am going to end the stream here, I believe. Been about 2.5 hours now. And you know how these games go. Reading can get hard after a while. So I'll leave it on a cliffhanger here. Because I'm evil. No.